We did a motion control flight simulator, as most of you probably saw, and this is our pretty sweet little game picture right here. But so we worked on the project. Paige did all the map design. Edward almost all the animations and modeling and effects. That's all due to him. He did a lot of work with that, as well as integrating with scripting. And like I said, Paige did the map design, a lot of models, like the KFC and the SSCIC.
And the funny jokes.
And the funny jokes we mostly paid. And I did all of the Connect integration, as well as a lot of the scripting, and just sort of game mechanics stuff.
This is me? Yeah. I built the terrain and I found like cartoon grass, stuff like that. I painted everything. I had to import the 3D game objects, and I found a lot of them on the SketchUp 3D warehouse, which is pretty awesome. Let's check it out if you ever do a 3D project. But they wouldn't import directly to Unity because I didn't have the very current version of Unity. So I actually opened them up in SketchUp, edited a lot of them for our purposes, and then imported them into Blender, edited them because when they went SketchUp to Blender, a lot of them like completely changed. That was really fun. So I had to fix them and then import them into Unity. And each of the game objects is a weird shape. So you have to go in there and manually figure out the exact numbers. You want your box collider, your sphere collider, all of those out. You can only use like one box collider per object. So even if you had like a object that was like 2 boxes, you could only use 1 box per collider. It's actually kind of difficult to do like circular square colliders. I also did the skybox, which was really easy, but the moving water plane we had a lot of trouble with, and that's where the SSCIC is. I think that's it for me.
And like Paige said, we did get some of our models from the 3D warehouse, but a lot of what we had to do was we either had to modify existing models or we had to create a lot of them from scratch. And that's mostly what I did, is create them from scratch and animate them. And so here we have our chicken and a chicken wireframe version. It's the exact same model, it's just the wireframe kind of shows you each of the polygon faces that went into the model, so you can see a little bit more detail of it. And so a lot of the work that we did was tweaking and adjusting or creating these models and placing them in the scene. And then a large component of that was the actual animation. So part of that we actually did in Unity, and part of it I did in 3D Studio. This bottom picture here, the animation keyframes, outlines how I did it, how I did the animation in 3D Studio. Each of the keyframes, I'm not sure if you can see, you may be able to tell, there's a difference between, you can see red and green on some of the frames. What happens is it actually, you have an object, and its position, rotation, and scale, size are stored at each frame, and the program will interpolate in between each frame to figure out how the object should be animated. So for instance, if I had fist closed at frame 0 and fist open at frame 10, the program can figure out to interpolate. It would store position, scale, and rotation here at frame 0 and also at frame 10, and it would figure out the in-between. And so the top picture here actually demonstrates how the animation is done for the more complex models. They were each rigged to a skeletal structure, which are the whitish gray lines that you can see in the chicken model that run throughout the middle of the mesh. And those are the actual bones that are animated, just like you can think of the mesh as the skin, essentially, for the bones, and then the bones are animated. And they have different weights. So then once we actually had the animations done and had the models done, we had to import them and integrate them through scripting calls and a lot of code in Unity.
It's kind of a shame, actually, with the chicken. The way we have it set up is the game camera is parented behind the chicken, so you never actually see the front of it, which actually it looks pretty good, but you never get to see that.
So, but then this, take key note of this bone structure, because you'll actually, Walter's about to talk about it in a second, how it integrates with the Connect and how we use that to do the controls.
Okay, so Connect integration, basically you go through a whole bunch of software, do a whole bunch of scripting, and you get access to all of this. Although, all I ended up using was this stuff up here. So flight controls, you can think of it, really all we did, roll is kind of essential with real flight, but for us we only needed to control the horizontal and vertical axis. Axes, which you can, they're called pitch and yaw. So the best analogy I kind of found describing how you control this thing is if you think of a flight joystick, you push it down and you go down, you pull it up, you go up, lean it to the right, you go to the right, lean it to the left, you go to the left. And if you kind of think about those as two separate planes, those are the inputs, and that's defined in the pitch. Basically, it's a plane from your shoulders to your head, and you kind of move down and up like that. And then for the yaw on the side to side, if you shoot a vector out of your head, you go like that. And it's actually offset during the calibration, so whatever kind of pose you calibrate to, like say if you're pointing out like here, this is going to be the zero basis for your pitch in the game. So everything, if you wanted to go further back, you would have to go beyond here, back here, or vice versa. But most people kind of, I actually found this helpful if you like lean forward a little bit, because it's harder to go back than it is to go down. Okay, the software involved, there's 3 distinct layers here. It's kind of interesting. This is all separate from Microsoft, actually. Like this, the hardware driver, we got on GitHub. And then this OpenAI, which is for motion sensors in general. The Connect is just really a Microsoft branded thing. And then the third component, the only thing we actually touched with Unity, is C# scripts that are accessing this 90 law, which is found in OpenAI. Okay, gameplay problems that we noticed during the demo day. The calibration sequence, even though we've got some text up there, and we sort of show the skeleton that you're mapping to, it was not really intuitive, and I kind of found myself talking people through it every time, rather than them just walking up and playing. And a lot of people have difficulty getting used to the controls, and they're just kind of twitchy. Like it didn't turn out perfectly, but it's the sort of general ideas preserved. And if you actually practiced it, you gotta find that there's a zero zone where I set it where it won't affect anything. So you've got a little bit of wiggle room where it won't do anything. And you just kind of balance in and out of that is the most effective way to control it. But people are just stepping over to really get that. And yeah, the map's a little too small. And because they're having trouble controlling it, they're really running into walls, especially in the first corner. And the ring collection was also a little bit confusing because you have to hit the rings twice to collect them. So people would get to the end and see rings collected 0, and they're like, wait a minute, I flew through all these rings, saw all these messages, and I didn't have anything. So that would be something to change. So let's do the demo.
It's this one.
And with the calibration, it probably won't matter, but especially like you guys right there, if you kind of try to stay still.
Maybe you want to turn to the side. So,
Well, I kind of want to be able to see the screen too. So, it shouldn't be a problem. You know, like some feedback.
Can't get the screen to show that.
Oh, got it.
It just needed a little longer press.
Nope, that was
Yeah, fine.
bad.
And now this flash.
Function.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Walker sounds like a pro. I just told you like 2 minutes ago.
Maybe try to scale. There you go. Just close that one.
Can you see the mouse on there?
Yeah.
Oh. Ah.
Suppose that would.
collection from it.
Something Titanic.
Yeah.
Okay, so with the, you're actually controlling the skeleton directly. And that in turn is what gets the, propels the chicken along. So this is what I was talking about. People don't really get, my idea was, okay, put the skeleton up there and have it do the calibration buzz, and it should be fine for most people.
Can't change anything in the background.
What does the debug window say?
It's a really good question.
Yeah.
If you close the,
You need some more light?
stop it. Go ahead with the light, just stop it.
Do you think you need more light?
I don't know, actually. That might help, yeah.
Okay.
I think I can do it. Do you think your jacket's making your mind stay like from your shoulders and your arms?
It's impossible.
I know. It worked on game day.
Serious business now.
The music was also kind of everyone's favorite part. SoundCloud.
I'm actually looking for a chicken squawk sound and just happened to run across it. Okay, here we go.
So yeah, you can see this sort of twitchiness I was talking about. Actually, I gotta go to this desk. Can you stop it?
Alright, you see like.
Just start it over.
Okay. Yeah, that light seems to.
Yeah, the light, I know it's pretty light sensitive.
Freeze.
I think you need to take another step back.
Alright, let's get started.
This is irritating.
Step back a little more.
Is there a place? That was the nice thing about doing it at demo day is we could do it a few times, test it, and then we put a strip of tape on the ground where you should stand, so it was really easy to figure out where to calibrate it. It didn't really mess up as much.
Try walking forward and backwards and work on something. It's not so much the, no, you don't need the legs.
Seems to maybe I don't have to see it, but the bottom half of your body's really light, the top half's really dark.
I'm gonna actually, yeah, I'm gonna try and tilt it maybe up.
Here's the house.
Oh, you gotta exit. I'm sorry, I was too bad.
So you got 4 new users.
Alright, let's try again. Sorry guys, this is kind of, it's a tricky thing, it's not.
You're breathing too hard, that's what I'm looking at.
Anyone behind Podcast stay as still as you possibly can.
No, it's not picking them up at all. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it crashed.
Okay, you need to do your computer.
Here, if you go in the, just open up this. Sorry guys, this is a terrible demo.
Just keep playing the chicken song.
I made up a dance and named it Chicken Song.
This is
It's
very
really
sad.
cool.
Very sad.
So I think to me, my favorite part of the game is if you hit the 8 bells, obviously you lose your feathers and it like squawks and you see these feathers flying off at you and there's always the explosions. People have a lot of goofy grins playing it, so that's what we're going for.
That's really the long one. If it loads up.
Yeah, we still have 8 minutes.
I just wanted to work once.
I think most people saw it already.
That's true.
Okay. That's the area we had
You start?
before. Yes. If you had escaped. Yes. Guys, I think I'm gonna have to call it.
Yeah.
Hopefully you all saw this. I'm not sure why this is not working yet.
It could be a number of things. So it's,
We could
That
change
could be
it
really
instead.
tricky.
Yeah. No, yeah. Did everyone here saw the game, didn't they? Okay, so I think we're just gonna,
At least you did get to see it in operation.
yeah, take our word for it, I guess.
Well, it did start, it did start, and just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is it finicky? Like one of us mentioned, the controls are really finicky. So if it doesn't calibrate right, then the game experience is kind of messed up. When you're in a controlled environment like that, where we can tell people, you know, this is where you have to stand, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do, it usually goes really smooth.
I never
questions
went
anyone
outside.
has?
When you're debugging this at first with using the Kinect, is there a way where you could use manual controls, or do you just kind of have to wait until you got a Kinect to test it out?
Part of the way I started to the development cycle is the first thing I did was I made a mouse controlled flight controller.
Okay.
So it's using the mouse X and the mouse Y. And that made it tremendously simple because everyone else working on the project could use that placeholder. And I did the Kinect stuff just entirely separately. And that actually only got put into the game Sunday night. So it's
It was
just,
after we had already worked out all the other controls, but it ended up being great, like sort of compartmentalization, because that way Paige and I could take the scripts and, you know, edit values or do things, you know, modify the scripts and stuff like that, and it would still see an effect in the change of gameplay, but it was still fluid in our, you know, workflow where we weren't having problems with execution control.
that was,
Yeah, we separated it pretty nice.
if you think about it, at the end of the day, all you're doing with that Kinect is just using it to generate two variables for the pitch and the yaw. So that's, I mean, yeah, it's just really modular just by nature, so that really helped with development.
So did you remove the mouse controller?
I would have just shown you mouse controls, but it's nothing there, so. Any other questions, or?
Okay, so thank them.